Good morning, y'all. It's Kathy. I was rushing around trying to get my stuff together this morning. I hope everyone's doing well. When you jump on, please just say hi to me so I know there's someone watching. And if you don't mind clicking like and then share. I also know that many watch on replay. So also even when you watch on replay, if you'll click like and share, or don't like and share, don't dare do that. And that way, we'll get a bigger following and more people will get to hear my stories. I have a long story today. It has 3 parts. I'm going to try to do all 3 parts within an hour. And if I can't, then I'll, continue it tomorrow, or I may just go ahead and do it and y'all can stop when you need to and then come back and watch it later. Anyway, it's still about 9:57. So I wanted to tell, but while people are getting on, I wanted to tell everybody about what happened with my husband yesterday. And that is, he had had a heart attack, but it was a silent heart attack, where he didn't know he had it. He had some symptoms, but he didn't go into a full-blown heart attack. So he has done that a couple times actually, and a lot of times you can't get somebody to go to the hospital unless there's something really painful that they can't deal with. But anyway, he just had trouble breathing and, some chest pains and stuff. So that's serious, and so always go to the hospital. But anyway, we're grateful that nothing worse happened to him because when they went in yesterday to do stents, they found that he had a 90% blockage. And so that would have been bad if he had went on into that heart attack. Also, that was in his right artery. He had a 90% blockage, and they put a stent in there. And then in his left artery, he had a lot of plaque buildup, and so they're trying to treat that with medication and hope that causes that to clear out. So I guess they'll just keep a watch on him and keep checking him and making sure that doesn't need another stent. So there's where we are right now, and it's been a little stressful because we weren't real sure what he could do and couldn't do, and then we didn't want him to go on into a heart attack or something. I don't think I put my lipstick on. Maybe I did. Anyway, y'all know how I am about makeup. Well, I can't even find it. So anyway, I guess everybody will be jumping on here around 10. And like I said, if y'all are catching the replay, just hit like and share so that we can get the word spread. And today's story is going to be about a hair salon a different hair salon that I owned that I had a spirit come into. It was a totally different experience than I had with the other hair salon. I'm putting my lipstick on. Sorry, but I can't, my lips get dried out if I don't put some lipstick on. Anyway, my friend used to say, do you have to do that at the table? Anybody that knows me knows that I do put lipstick on wherever I go. Anyway, so today's story is going to be a little bit different. It's kind of odd and creepy and all the things. So it also has some parts that are amazing miracles, but the spirit world is a strange place because there's both people of light of God and people of darkness who don't know where they're at. They feel lost and all the things, and a lot of people try to help them go to the light and stuff like that. So that's what we're talking about. Sometimes there's people who continue to walk the earth in darkness. So I had to deal with one of those in this story. And so it's called, it's a partial ghost sighting. I spotted a partial ghost. And anyway, so remember, if you have something rude that you need to say because you're feeling frustrated, then just say, when pigs fly. Sorry, this is backwards. When pigs fly. That means that you totally disagree with what I'm telling you, or you think I'm crazy. It's okay. We all have our own, thought process. Anyway, I had to get my computer out today because this is story, it's it's been a while since these stories happened because I'm starting at the beginning. Everybody wanted me to start at the beginning. So I'm starting at the beginning and of when I started having experiences. And so it's a little bit, you know, my memory's not so great to remember every little detail. And I thought, well, and I hate these glasses, but it's what I have out here. That's what I used to paint with all the time. Anyway, I don't think anyone's on right now, but I'm going to go ahead because it's 10:02. I'm going to go ahead and start telling the story. And, oh, I see a couple people are watching, so hi. Anyway, I think y'all just jumped on here. I hate to start too soon because, you know, everybody's just remembering, oh, yeah, that story comes on at 10 o'clock. Anyway, today's story is called a partial ghost sighting in the hair salon. And the way it started out is someone had mentioned to me about seeing an apparition that was only visible from the waist up. And I told them, well, I had had a similar experience. I had opened, I'm going to tell the story, and if I get where I don't remember something, I'll look down at my notes. But anyway, I just remember that one day I had opened a brand new hair salon. I had left the old salon that had been haunted with the spirit of the lady there. And so this shows that it's not necessarily the place, it may be the person, or it may be the person and the place. Who knows? It's just all happens differently. Anyway, I decided to move and I opened a new hair salon in a brand new strip shopping center in a very nice part of town in Spring, Texas. And the strip center had only been there a while, and all the houses behind it were fairly new within the last, 5 years or so. And one morning I went in there, and it was only after I'd opened for about 2 or 3 months at the most that I went in there and I opened the doors. And when I opened the doors and looked to the back of the salon, all the lights were out in the salon. When I looked to the back of the salon, I saw a half man back there. He was I could only see him from the waist up. And it's quite confrontational when you see something like that, because my first instinct is just to rebuke that spirit, make it go away. And so I looked at him, and he knew that I could see him. And I said, you need to get out of here, because all the workers are fixing to come in and the customers are fixing to come in, and I do not want you scaring them, and you need to go. You're not allowed in here. And so he went to the left of him into the room where back room where we always dispensed our color and all of that stuff. So he went into there, and I was hoping that he completely left. So I went back there, turned on all the lights, and went back there, and he wasn't anywhere. And I just could not understand why this was happening to me, why I was seeing things like this. I had not seen things like that before. So I just prayed. I always pray, y'all. I'm praying even when I talk to somebody or whatever. The Bible says pray without ceasing. But anyway, I was praying about it, and all of my workers started coming in, and the clients and everything. And I just had to tell them. I always told everybody, just like I'm telling y'all, I always told everybody what was going on. But anyway, let me see. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Anyway, later in the day, I had a client come in who was new to me, but she said she'd lived in the area for a long time. And I said, well, she said, oh, I heard all about you, because people had told her about me, and that's how she got my name to come over to my beauty salon. And she said, I heard about your experience, with the spirit in your other salon. I said, well, yeah. I said, but you know what? I had an experience this morning. She wanted to hear all about it, and I told her, and she said, I wonder if that has anything to do with my daughter. And I said, why do you think that has anything to do with your daughter? She said, well, my daughter owns the home that's straight behind your beauty shop here, and there was a brick wall built between the strip center and the houses. Well, her daughter owned the home that was straight behind my beauty shop. And she said when they moved in there, her husband kept going out to mow the grass, and when he was out in the yard, he just felt terribly uncomfortable, and he's a real tough dude. So for him to get so nervous that he didn't want to mow the yard anymore, he always felt like someone was watching him. And so he didn't want to mow the yard, and he hired people to mow the yard, and then he hired landscapers to come out and put in a sprinkler system. And while they were digging up the yard to put in the sprinkler system, they found bones. And then, of course, they had to stop the project. The coroner's office came and all the things. And it turns out that her husband was an FBI, her son-in-law, I mean, was an FBI agent. And so, anyway, I guess maybe because they experienced so many different things with so many people, he knew that this could be something, I don't know. So they didn't know who these bones belonged to or anything. They were so old, they didn't have any way to really find out who this person was that had been, buried back there. Anyway, later I did a little research, and I don't have my full story here, so I'll just have to do it by memory. Y'all, sorry, I don't know why I didn't send. I sent it to myself in an email. Anyway, later he, I'm gonna make sure I have the other part of the story. Let's see. Anyway, that first story, I'm just have to remember it. But anyway, so she went home and she told her daughter and everything what had happened, and then her daughter wanted to talk to me, and she came over and told me the whole story about how they would see things in the house. They saw a man up on their catwalk that went across the rooms and everything. And anyway, they finally had a priest come out and bless the home and all the things, and they discovered those bones. And after they discovered the bones, and they had the coroner take them off the property and everything, well, then all of the activity ceased for them. So that was the way this started. And then later on, let me see, it was about a week, I guess, after that happened, a friend came by to go to lunch with me. And when we went to eat, we went to this little old town around there, and there was a big restaurant that looked like a bar down. It had been an old saloon and hotel, and in the bottom part there was a bar, and upstairs there were rooms where everybody used to stay when they would come in on the railroad. And it had been there since the railroad had started out there. Anyway, we went to eat lunch one day, about a week after this incident had happened with seeing the partial ghost in the salon. And when we were over there, when I went into the building, I had been there before, but for some reason, maybe because my spirit was on higher alert, I don't know why. But anyway, for some reason, I just felt a weird energy, when I walked into the building. And we sat down, and the lady took our order and everything, and I was watching this other lady that was walking behind the bar, and she was just a great waitress. She was waiting on everybody. There was 2 people down at the end of the bar, and she went over there to get them a beer, and she set it on a tray. And as she was walking across the back of the bar, I said, there is a spirit in here, and that lady he's fixing to do something to that lady. And I no sooner said that than her hand flew up, like someone had hit her hand from underneath where she was carrying the beer on the tray. And they hit her hand, and her hand flew up, and the beer went up in the air. 2 bottles of beer flew up in the air, fell to the ground, and busted all over the place. And of course, the 2 customers on the end were running to her, and the manager and all the people. And she was so mad. She was like, "Oh, I can't believe this. This keeps happening to me." And I said, this ghost likes that lady, and he's just pestering her. He's not going to hurt her, but he is going to pester her to death because he likes her and he likes to pester people. Well, I said, I wonder if I need to tell the manager that, who this is, because it was a man who had apparently been attached to that place, because it felt like that he worked there. Well, anyway, so all that happened, and they cleared up the mess, and then I told my friend, I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. Well, I went to the restroom, and actually, I'm telling it in reverse, as usual, because I don't have my story here, or I didn't look down at it. So before this happened to the lady, the reason I felt the presence of this spirit was because I had gone to the restroom after we'd gotten there, and when I was in the restroom, I heard all this noise up in the ceiling, And this is what happens when you're doing things live and candid. Anyway, I heard all this noise up in the ceiling, and I thought, well, you know, it's a 2-story. There's somebody up there moving around. Well, then I saw a mist come down from the corner like that, and it was just a white mist. It came down into the room, and I felt this presence of a male, and that he was a rude person. I mean, he was an inappropriate. I'm going to say inappropriate. You don't go into a women's restroom when you're a man. So anyway, he had come into the restroom. He sort of had that disposition of he'd do whatever he wanted to and didn't care. Anyway, he came into the restroom, and I heard the stall door on the stall next to me start rattling. And then I came out of the stall, and I said, "You are not supposed to be in the ladies' restroom. Now you need to get out of here." And he left. I washed my hands, and I saw him leave, you know, but he went out into the restaurant. Well, that's when I sat down, and then I knew that he was going to do something to that lady. Anyway, that all happened. So we went over and told, I finally decided to go over and tell the management what had happened. And it turns out that my computer's not giving me anything. Anyway, it turns out that they were completely aware of the spirit, and they told me that it was a doctor that used to come there. And I said, "I don't think so." I said, I saw a person in my beauty shop a week ago. I think this has something to do with him." And they said, "Well, did you see all the pictures on the wall over there? You want to walk over and look at the pictures?" I said, "Sure. And see if you see him," because the picture of I'm sorry, no, it wasn't the doctor. It was that they thought there was an older man. I'm not sure what he had to do with the restaurant. Maybe he was the owner or something, that they thought was the one doing this ghostly activity in there. I walked over to the wall and looked at the pictures, and I spotted the man who I had seen in my beauty shop. And I said, "This is the one that I saw." And he was behind the bar. He had very dark, thick, curly hair and a black mustache, which is what he had when I saw him in the beauty shop. And they were like, "Are you sure it's not this other one?" And they pointed to the other man. I said, "No, this is the man I saw in my beauty shop, and I feel like he's trying to tell me something, but I don't think I'm allowed to speak to this person because, you know, I don't think he's walking in the light." So anyway, I know everybody has their own take on that, okay? Anyway, so we went over and sat down. They said, "Well, you know, if you read the menu on the back, it tells the whole story about what all happened here and everything." So we read the menu, and it told a story about, I can't even remember what the story was because it didn't match with what I was getting. But anyway, I wound up eating there, and then they said, "Well, you know, do you want to go upstairs?" Because they said they had a lot of haunting upstairs. I said, "No, I don't want to go upstairs." They're like, "Will you please?" I felt nervous, you know. I felt there was a darkness there, and I didn't want to participate on the one hand. On the other hand, you know, there's real people in real life that are being affected by these spirits, like that lady that got the beer knocked out of her hand. She actually quit because she was so tired of getting scared to death all the time by this spirit. Well, so I agreed to go upstairs, and the minute that I walked up the stairs, over on the left side, there was a big window. It was kind of a rounded area, and there was a big window there, and I said, "There is a man standing there at that window. He has on all white clothes, and he has a white beard and white hair." And they didn't say anything. And then I went down the first room. I walked in. I didn't feel anything at all. And then I walked to the second room, and I said, "This room bothers me." And then I saw a man and a woman it's in my mind that I see this. It's not in my real eyes, okay? In my mind, a picture came forth that was a man and a woman in there in the bed, and it feels like it's that same man, and he's in there with her, but I have a terrible feeling about that. And so then I go to the next room, which was their supply room, and they said, "This is the place that has the most activity." And I said, "Well, that's just him coming around and bugging people in here in this room." Well, then I went on down to the other rooms. And as I well, as I came out of that storage room, I got scared to death because I saw this man in my mind's eye coming down the hallway with a shotgun. And this is graphic, y'all, gory. You know, not gory because we can't see anything, but graphic, okay? So if that bothers you, turn the channel. Anyway, he was coming down the hall with a shotgun, and he turned to go into that room that I had just been in with that one man that I told you about, and he shot him. He shot the other man. And then that was about all I saw there, and I left. Well, later, they were like, oh yeah, there's stories about one brother killing another brother and all of these things, but I didn't know. They didn't know all the details, and so that was the end of that. So anyway, I left there, and I guess it was about another week or two went by, and this man that looked like I was in the salon by myself, and this man that looked like an angel to me, I tell you, came in the slot. He had the blondest hair and the bluest eyes, and he was middle-aged, and you could just sense something when he walked into the room. Anyway, I felt it right when he walked in, but I thought, you're just so, you know, dramatic. You think too much, let it go, you know. So I sat him down, and I was cutting his hair. He never really told me anything about himself. He said, you know, how you doing? And he got me to talking, and then I was telling him about the story and going to lunch and all the things that had happened. And he said, oh yeah, you know, that town's known to be really haunted. And I said, actually, I did not know that. And I've been there many times to do craft classes and all the things, but I did not know about all these haunted stories in that town. And so he said, well, yeah. He said, well, did you ever find out who the man was, you know, in the back of the salon? And I said, no. And he said, well, if you go to, I said, I found out where they were all buried, but I tried to drive by there, and I didn't see any kind of a graveyard or anything. And he said, well, if you go down down this street, he told me which streets to go down. He said, they're buried in the median of the highway. And I said, oh my gosh, who does that? And he said, well, I'm sure that the cemetery was already there, and then they decided to build the, you know, highway, and so they built around it, and they're buried in the middle of the highway. So I decided, well, I was going to go on down there later that day and check it out. So I went down there, and I didn't want to actually go to the cemetery because I was afraid they would start talking to me and everything. Sorry, y'all, get a drink. I'm sitting out in a hot shed. Anyway, I said, I don't know if I should keep doing this, but I was so curious, you know, I had to go down there and see. So I went down there, and I drove around, and I parked across the street at the restaurant that was right straight across the street from them. And I was like, you know, I felt bad for the guy. We're always going to have compassion for people, whether good or bad, you know. But anyway, I felt bad for the guy, that he wasn't at rest and all the things. And I thought, why does he want to tell me anything? I drove down there, and I parked across the street from the cemetery. And I'm sitting there and looking, you know, and I'm like, that is so weird that there's a cemetery straight across the street from their graveyard. And I just said a little prayer that they would find peace and all those things. And I had turned my car off. Well, when I went to turn my car back on, it wouldn't start. And I thought, oh my gosh, because I know when spirits do, they mess with my phones, they do all kinds of things to me, y'all. So anyway, I thought, well, okay. I said, listen, I need to leave here. I've got something else to do. You need to let me start my car. Well, they wouldn't. I thought, well, they want me to do something. I said, I felt this impression that I needed to go over to the graveyard, that they wanted me to go there, and that they wanted me to write down the names that were on the headstones. So I did that. I said, okay, I'm going to go over there and do that. So I got a pencil and a piece of paper, went over there, and went to each, and I felt perfect peace. I didn't feel scared or any of the things. And they actually had a parking place right in front of the graveyard that you could go to, but I was across the street. So anyway, I walked over there, and I wrote down the names and the dates of birth and death on each person that was in the graveyard. And immediately I felt drawn to the one name. And it was it was one of the brothers. So anyway, I got that, and he had told me also that there was like a, I don't know what you call it, the community center or the city, it's not city hall, but it's like where you can go and gather information about a town. I forget what that's called, but anyway, he told me that there was one of those over there, and that they may have information, about this family. So I was planning to go over there to see if they had any information, so I did that. And I went over there, and they not only had information, they had a book about this, about the whole town, everybody who had ever been in the town, how it started, all the things. And when I looked through the book, I found the picture of the man that I had seen in the salon, and also the picture that was in the restaurant. So everybody knew this story but me. I just didn't know the story. Well, so I got that, and then he said, oh, I forgot to tell you, when I was leaving, when I got all the names on the paper and went back to my car started right up, and then I was able to leave. I don't know, malfunction, them keeping me there until I did what they wanted me to do. I don't know. Anyway, I got the book, and he was in that book, and he was, they said that he had been, that the lady in the room with him was his brother's wife, and that he had been with her, and that the brother had shot the wife, and that then he had moved away from town. That was the way the story went there. Well, what I saw, and I can't prove or disprove, was the brother shot the both of them, and they took the brother that he shot down there and buried him, because that is where he used to have a little camp where he made moonshine. That was back in the days of Prohibition, and he was making moonshine down there. So they buried him down there where he had been making moonshine. So that was that story. And then I wound up going to that town several more times, and I would have different experiences with different spirits. And I think the difference is that when I had lived there before, so I had lived in the area before, and I had gone to craft classes and everything in the town. I had never had any experience, never heard about these ghost stories or anything, but I moved away. And when I moved away, that's when I finally accepted that I was able to see and do these things. And then when I moved back, then I was able to see what was going on spiritually that had been happening all around me. And I just wouldn't allow myself to tune into that, Anyway, there was something else about that story that I wanted to say. When I got the book also, it told of the doctor that they used to see. They would all be down in the sidewalks, and they would always report seeing a doctor. He turned out to be a doctor that used to come to that hotel to treat everybody. Anyway, there was reports of seeing a man dressed in white with white hair and a white beard standing up in that window, and I had seen him right when I walked up the stairwell in my mind's eye. And so there was a picture of him in that book as well. And I know you all want to know where this is. Well, it was in Old Town Spring in Texas, and there is a book about the history of the town, and there's pictures of the spirits that I'm talking about in that book. So anyway, that's my story for today. Does anybody have any questions? This turned out to be a shorter story because, I left out a lot of details that weren't important apparently, because those are the main points. I did wind up talking to a friend who believed she had met that same young man that I had met, because he came in, she worked about 30 minutes from where my shop was, and she said I was describing a man that she had met a couple days before who looked just like that, and she said I had the strangest feeling about him. I almost think he was a messenger so that I would find out all the information. But anyway, that's the story for today. And does anybody have any questions? I really don't see any comments on here right now. I know a few people are watching, so if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But if not, then we'll just plan on meeting back here next Tuesday. I'm trying to get through all the stories up to today. And then when I get up today, we'll start, some different stories. So Anyway, that's it. And if you have a story that you would like to tell, then just message me and we'll talk about it and try to get it on here. That's it. So thank y'all for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.